A small folded note. A single line, written in neat handwriting beneath the soft glow of candlelight. Laughter echoed around the table. The laughter of the richest friends one could have. Was it a warning? Or a carefully crafted trap waiting to unfold? What would you do if a stranger handed you that note?
They're investing in you.
Right in the middle of a dinner with your billionaire friends. Your support means the world to us. Like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep sharing stories like this. Let's begin today's story. The night over Manhattan shimmered like molten gold, the city lights reflecting off glass towers as limousines lined up outside La Méridien, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. Inside, the air carried the faint scent of truffle and aged wine, softened by the gentle hum of a live-string quartet. At a private table near the window sat Victoria Hale, 42, the formidable CEO of Hale Technologies, a woman whose empire was built on data, ambition, and sleepless nights. Her golden hair, twisted into an elegant chignon, caught the candlelight as she laughed with her guests. 3 of Wall Street's finest investors. Across from her sat Richard Lowe, 55, tall and commanding, with silver hair and a grin honed by decades of manipulation. To his right, Clara Voss, the ever-charming philanthropist who turned charity into business strategy. Next to her, Michael Trent, a golf bronze dealmaker who spoke too casually about billion-dollar ventures. They spoke in a code built of numbers and secrets, a language Victoria had long mastered, though tonight it felt hollow. Serving their table was Evan Cole, 26, tall, clean-cut, his dark hair slicked neatly back. Beneath his calm exterior was a quiet intensity, the kind that came from seeing too much and saying too little. He had once been a financial risk analyst at Marston & Vale Capital, a prestigious investment firm. But after uncovering a massive fraud within the company, he was swiftly dismissed and blacklisted. Now, working as a waiter at La Méridien was less a job than an observation post, a front-row seat to how greed performed its rituals. As Victoria raised her glass, Evan approached with the main course, seared sea bass over saffron risotto. His movements were precise, but when he set her plate down, a small folded note slid beside her wine glass. She glanced down, brow furrowing. The paper was plain, the handwriting clean. They're not investing with you. They're investing in you. Her heart stumbled. When she looked up, Evan was already walking away, expression unreadable. Around her, laughter resumed. But every smile now felt wrong, too sharp, too practiced. The violin swelled, and for the first time that evening, the golden dinner began to taste like betrayal. When she glanced back again, Evan was gone. The rain came softly over Manhattan the next morning, streaking the wide windows of Victoria Hale's penthouse office. The city below moved like a machine, precise, relentless, indifferent. Victoria sat in silence at her mahogany desk, her reflection faintly visible against the skyline. The folded note lay beside her coffee cup, its edges creased from how many times she had opened and closed it during the night. She hadn't slept. Every laugh, every toast from last night played again in her mind, each smile sharpened into something suspicious. Richard's voice echoed loudest, smooth, confident, persuasive. Aurum Grid will reshape the future of energy, he had said. And yet, the note's words lingered like smoke. They're not investing with you. They're investing in you. When her assistant, Mara Jensen, entered, Victoria straightened quickly. Mara, a meticulous woman in her 30s with cropped brown hair and sharp eyes, carried an envelope marked confidential. This just came in from Mr. Lowe's office, Mara said softly, placing it on the desk. He said it was urgent. Victoria tore it open. Inside was a contract, detailed, flawless, and cold. An initial transfer of $200 million to secure investment priority, the clause read. She felt a chill crawl down her spine. Too soon, too eager. Richard never rushed business. That wasn't his style. "Do you think something's off?" Mara asked, noticing her hesitation. Victoria hesitated, caught between instinct and logic. "Maybe I'm just tired," she murmured, though her tone betrayed unease. When Mara left, Victoria turned her chair toward the window. The city looked smaller from here, its chaos contained by glass. She reached for her wine glass from last night, half empty, faint lipstick on the rim, and turned it slowly in her hand. A fine crack ran along the stem, invisible unless you looked closely. She hadn't noticed it before. It seemed symbolic. Her reflection in the glass appeared distorted, as though even her image couldn't be trusted. She pulled open her wallet and unfolded the note again. The paper had begun to soften, the ink slightly smudged by her thumb. "They're investing in you." Outside, a thunderclap rolled across the sky. Victoria took a deep breath and picked up her phone. La Meridian. The name appeared under her recent calls. She hesitated for only a second before pressing dial. Now next, the soft afternoon light fell through La Meridian's windows, gilding the empty tables before the dinner service. Victoria Hale stepped inside, dressed in quiet gray rather than power black, the air around her more fragile than commanding. The restaurant manager straightened immediately, but she raised a hand. "I'd like to see Evan Cole," she said simply. Evan appeared moments later, still in uniform, his demeanor measured, cautious. The last time they had met, he'd slipped her a note that had cracked her world in two. Now, as he faced her again, he seemed uncertain whether this was confrontation or curiosity. "I'm not here to file a complaint," Victoria began, her voice low but controlled. "I'm here to ask a question, and I'll pay $10,000 for 1 hour of your honesty." He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I don't take money for conversations." Victoria met his gaze steadily. "Then take it as compensation for the truth." Minutes later, they sat in a corner booth, the same one where her laughter had filled the air the night before. Now, only silence sat between them. "Why did you write that note?" she asked finally. Evan leaned back, fingers clasped, choosing his words carefully. "Because I've seen their kind before," he said quietly. "I used to work as a risk analyst at Marston & Vale Capital, one of the biggest investment firms in the country. My job was to evaluate fraud exposure, spot inconsistencies." His jaw tightened. "And I did. I found evidence of a massive internal scam, fake portfolios, manipulated losses. When I refused to bury it, my supervisor made sure I was let go. No firm would hire me after that. Apparently, integrity doesn't pay well." A humorless smile flickered across his face. "So I took this job. It pays the rent, and it lets me listen. People talk more freely when they think the waiter doesn't matter." Victoria said nothing. The candlelight danced across her face, revealing a trace of vulnerability beneath the poise. "And last night?" "I overheard them discussing Aurum Grid," he said. "Shell companies, offshore accounts. It sounded like a setup." Victoria exhaled slowly. Her fingers traced the edge of her glass, her mind assembling pieces she didn't want to see. For the first time in years, she wasn't sure which side of the deal she stood on. Outside, the city darkened, gold fading to gray. The following night found Victoria in her penthouse office again, surrounded by the sterile glow of computer monitors. Outside, Manhattan shimmered like circuitry, its lights pulsing with the same rhythm as the data flooding across her screens. Her hand moved quickly over the keyboard, eyes scanning spreadsheets, offshore transaction logs, and digital footprints she wasn't supposed to see. Evan had given her a list of names and figures, vague, incomplete. But to someone like Victoria Hale, patterns spoke louder than words. Every trail led somewhere improbable. Tiny shell corporations registered under meaningless names, all routed through the same address, a nondescript post office in the Cayman Islands. As she traced one transaction to the next, her breath quickened. Aurum Grid, the revolutionary project Richard Lowe had praised, was nothing more than an elaborate funnel. A polished facade built to wash money until it gleamed clean. Victoria leaned back in her chair, pulse pounding. She tried to reason with herself. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe the numbers didn't tell the full story. But her instincts, honed by years in the volatile tech world, whispered otherwise. The numbers never lied. People did. Opening a confidential archive, she dug deeper into Richard Lowe's history. What she found chilled her. A closed investigation from 7 years ago. International money laundering through a renewable energy startup in Singapore. Charges were dropped without explanation. Official records sealed. The case dismissed for lack of evidence. But the signatures on those documents were familiar. 2 of them belonged to members of the Senate Energy Committee. Powerful friends, the kind that could make truth disappear. Victoria pushed away from her desk, suddenly aware of how quiet the room was. The hum of the city below seemed distant, unreal. On the wall, her company's mission statement hung framed. Innovation through integrity. For the first time, the words felt heavy, hypocritical. She turned toward the digital tickers streaming across her screen. Hale Technologies, HTX, stock flickered in green, then dipped sharply. Another alert appeared. Aurum Grid investment proposal approved pending funds transfer. Her fingers trembled above the keyboard. Somewhere between loyalty and self-preservation, a choice was forming. A trap, she whispered. It's a trap. The words echoed in the sterile silence. And for the first time, she believed them. Morning sunlight sliced through the glass walls of Hale Technologies, spilling across polished marble floors. Victoria Hale stood before her mirror, fastening the pearl clasp of her cream blazer. Her reflection looked powerful, calm, untouchable. But behind that poised exterior was a storm of control. Today, she wouldn't fight the game. She would play it. For the next few days, Victoria kept her usual rhythm. She smiled in board meetings, approved smaller investments, and replied to Richard Lowe's messages with practiced warmth. She even laughed when he teased her for being too cautious. It was all part of the performance. Beneath that calm exterior, she and Evan Cole were quietly setting their trap. Evan's role was dangerous. Disguised as a wine delivery attendant, he slipped into private events and high-end lunches, carrying trays and secrets in equal measure. Nobody noticed the quiet young man refilling their glasses. Not the billionaire investors, nor their security. Hidden in his sleeve was a miniature recorder, capturing every careless boast, every whispered conspiracy. Meanwhile, Victoria continued her act. She invited Richard and his partners, Clara Voss and Michael Trent, to a final review of the Aurum Grid proposal inside Hale's boardroom. The men entered with confident smiles, their colognes heavy their egos heavier. Richard's silver hair gleamed under the lights as he spread the contract across her desk. "This is the future, Victoria," he said, sliding the folder toward her. "When this goes through, we'll own a piece of history, and so will you." Victoria forced a small, almost hesitant smile. "I just want to make sure we're aligned," she said softly, as if still unsure. He chuckled, self-satisfied. "That's the beauty of partnership. Trust. You sign, and we all win." Later that evening, Evan sent her the encrypted file. The audio was unmistakable, Richard and Michael plotting to acquire controlling shares of Hale Technologies after the investment transfer. A hostile takeover, wrapped in silk. The next morning, Richard arrived in her office, expecting compliance. Victoria greeted him warmly, like a loyal ally. He placed the contract in front of her once more, smiling like a cat toying with its prey. "You'll see, Victoria," he said smoothly. "Aurum Grid will make you richer than you've ever imagined. Just a little trust between friends." Victoria smiled back, gentle, measured, perfectly believable. "You've always had such vision, Richard." She closed the folder with trembling fingers, the tremor deliberate. He leaned back, satisfied. "Good. I knew you'd understand. The market rewards the brave." She nodded, gaze steady. "Then let's make history together." When the door closed behind him, the false smile vanished. Victoria exhaled slowly, opened the folder again, and studied every line. Eyes sharp, mind steady. The mask remained, but now it belonged to the hunter. The ballroom of the Hale Technologies Tower shimmered with chandeliers and polished marble, the kind of spectacle that only the wealthy could make look effortless. Cameras flashed. Journalists whispered. At the center of it all stood Victoria Hale, flawless in a cream suit, the portrait of power and poise. Her signature smile masked the tempest beneath. Today's signing ceremony for Aurum Grid was her most dangerous performance yet. One staged not for investors, but for justice itself. Around her, the predators were already celebrating. Richard Lowe, resplendent in a silver tie, chatted with Michael Trent about future profits. Clara Voss clinked her champagne flute against his, her laughter like glass breaking. They believed they'd won, that Victoria had surrendered. They didn't know the board had already been turned. Victoria's fingers brushed the edge of the folder on the table. Inside lay the Aurum Grid investment agreement, the contract that, once signed, would trigger a financial transfer monitored live by two unseen spectators, the FBI and the Securities and Exchange Commission. Every email, every document, every whispered meeting had been sent to them over the past week. The moment Richard signed, the web would close. Her heart pounded, but her face remained calm. "To new beginnings," she said, lifting her glass. Richard smiled that same predatory smile. "To visionaries," he replied, pressing the pen to paper. As the ink touched the page, time seemed to slow. A faint echo of Evan's words returned to her mind. The numbers never lie, people do. Then the doors burst open. The sound was sharp, final, like a verdict delivered. Black-suited agents poured into the room, their voices commanding, their presence absolute. "Federal Bureau of Investigation, nobody move." The room erupted into chaos. Glass shattered. Guests froze mid-scream. Richard's face drained of color as two agents pinned his wrists behind his back. Clara gasped, backing away. Michael tried to slip toward the exit, only to find another agent waiting there. Victoria stood motionless amid the storm, the light catching her calm expression. She didn't smile, didn't gloat. Justice wasn't sweet. It was sobering. Outside, through the glass doors, Evan Cole stood among the hotel staff, still dressed in his waiter's uniform. His hands gripped the white cloth tightly, knuckles pale, eyes fixed on the scene unfolding within. For the first time in years, the truth had a witness and a defender. He exhaled slowly, a quiet tremor leaving his body. Finally, he thought, the right people are being served. Spring came quietly to Manhattan, not with blossoms, but with clarity. The winter's cold that had once clung to Victoria Hale's life was gone, replaced by something gentler, quieter, and far rarer in her world. Reflection. Months had passed since the Orem Grid scandal. The news had burned brightly for a while, arrests, trials, and confessions. But like all storms, it eventually faded, leaving behind a cleaner sky. In the heart of that calm, Victoria built something new. The Silent Observer Fund, a scholarship for young people who loved finance not for profit, but for truth. It was named for a man who once stood silently in the background of her story and changed it forever. The fund's mission was simple: to give a voice to integrity. The ceremony took place in the same grand ballroom of La Meridian, where months ago deceit had worn perfume and laughter. This time, the air was softer, the lights warmer. On stage, Evan Cole stood beside her, no longer a waiter, but a research advisor for the foundation. He still wore humility like armor, still spoke little, but there was a quiet strength about him now, the kind that comes from surviving something that tried to break you. When the applause settled, Victoria stepped up to the podium. Her voice, calm and resonant, filled the room. "There was a time," she began, "when I thought wealth measured worth. I was wrong." She paused, her gaze drifting toward Evan. "He didn't just save me from losing money. He saved me from losing myself to arrogance." The audience fell silent. Cameras clicked, but no one dared interrupt. For a moment, even the hum of the city outside seemed to fade. Later that night, after the guests had gone, Victoria and Evan remained. The ballroom lights dimmed, leaving only the flicker of candlelight reflected in half-empty glasses. The same table, the same space where betrayal once bloomed, now carried the weight of something purer. Victoria lifted her glass, smiling softly. "To truth," she said. Evan met her gaze, the corners of his mouth curving in quiet agreement. To second chances. The flame between them danced, fragile, golden, and real. Sometimes, miracles don't arrive with thunder or wings. They arrive quietly, through people who choose truth over comfort, compassion over pride. Victoria's story wasn't about money or power, but about rediscovering grace, the kind that whispers when the world goes silent. And maybe that's how God works most days. Not in grand gestures, but in the steady courage to do what's right, even when no one sees. If this story touched your heart, share it. Leave a comment about the kindness or second chance that changed your life. And don't forget to subscribe. So together, we can keep spreading stories that remind us that goodness still wins. May God bless you and those you love.